We've got the overall context plan again, and this time we're going to look at this 2,000 square meters here and what's in there and what we're going to do with that. Now, this parcel of land is going to be for the association that we run, which is called Le Champ des Arts. I'll put the link for the blog there. That means the Field of Arts, and it's just a multi-purpose social network. We've got over 150 members now. We've been running it now for 3 years actively. We do all sorts of things in the rural area. We can have jam making workshops, gardening workshops, permaculture workshops, pottery, basket weaving, circus for children, music for adults, traditional folk dancing workshops, and we organise 2 balls a year, which are quite big social events. The last one we had 150 people turn up, I think. And there's some very cool young groups of musicians doing folk music, violin and accordion and guitar, and adding in clarinets and a bit of techno in there, and bits and bobs. And that's quite an upcoming and a very stable movement actually, which is a little bit underground, but very good live music, no gadgets, no gizmos, and all very good atmosphere, based on those pattern dances, circle dances, and then you've got waltzes, etc., etc. So that's quite a bit of the backbone of what we do. And Flo, my other half, she is now employed by the association. We've got enough activity to justify that she can be paid for all the work that she already did anyway, as the administrator and the main motor of this. The problem that we have is that every time we want to do something, we need a hall, and we use the village halls, but local politics is sort of light years behind. A village hall is heated with a kerosene boiler and radiators. It's got fluorescent strip lights, the polystyrene suspended ceiling tiles. Everything's square. It's very practical. You've got a catering kitchen with all stainless steel gas cookers and ovens and everything if you want to do some food, all mod cons. But it's difficult. You can't have the hall whenever you want. We wanted to organise a permaculture weekend for the International Week of Permaculture, but there's a presidential election that weekend, so the hall is reserved, of course, for the elections. And despite me complaining to the mayor that a permaculture weekend at the village hall would be more productive for the local economy than voting for a president, obviously it was as done as a joke. The elections will carry on having priority. Plus, the other thing is that we have to then load everything into the van, take it to the hall, unload it, and then when we finish the weekend, load it all back up, put it back in the van, and bring it home. So there's all that setting up work and then cleaning up and putting the hall back as it was afterwards work. Whereas if we've got our own hall, albeit slightly smaller, we won't be able to have any balls in there. But when we do a circus workshop or the Wednesday afternoon activities, there might be a music workshop or making a bird feeder workshop. The hall is there. And if it's designed into the hall that these activities can happen simply, and then we can also have a little restaurant bar side of it. So when parents do turn up with their children, they don't drop their children off and then have to go and sit in the car as they do in the village hall. They can come into the other side of the hall, sit down, have a coffee, catch up on news, and then that will accentuate that dynamic, and get people more involved in what's going on. So they're not just coming to drop their kid off for a half-hour music workshop. They come in and then they sit down, talk, have something to eat, maybe taste a coffee that we've bought from a fair trade producer where we've got direct contact with the producer in South America through a local produce network, and then they'll it's all about changing habits by more contact and within a good setting. We'll also be putting a rocket mass heater in there, which will be the first rocket mass heater in the area in a public space, and that should rocket on after that. Because one of the biggest budgets that we do have here is heating houses in the winter, and I definitely think the rocket mass heater, once it's in a public space, will bring people over to different ideas through their pocket, if not by any other means. So that's the objectives of the association, more or less. Now let's have a look at how that integrates into the big picture. First of all, we're going to zoom in. We'll come back to this picture afterwards. So we'll zoom into that 2,000 square meters, which is here. And I'm just going to turn that 90 degrees so it's easier for the camera. So south is now that way, north is that way, uphill here, downhill here, and about 8 meters of difference from the high point to the low point over this bit of the land. The barn's pretty much smack bang in the middle on the road. She's 15 meters long to there, and there to there, by 7 meters wide, all in stone. Post-war masonry, so that's all built with lime and sand instead of being built with soil, which means the walls are only 50 centimeters thick instead of the normal 80 with pre-war buildings. Roof's in good condition. It's all go. We just need to clean it out, move a few bits around, get some concrete flooring in, or some limecrete flooring in, and then build out from there. So the first objective will be to get this part, that bar and restaurant part I was talking about, ready with the rocket mass heater in there, so that we can have a public space, nice and cozy, nice rounded plastering on the walls. That rocket mass heater in there with all that rounded earthwork on it, and get rid of that square cutting fluorescent strip lighting atmosphere that you get in the village halls. That means that other groups, other networks as well, there are lots of other associations in the area that cross over on the social networks, like the local currency group. If they want to meet up and have a big reunion, a big meeting, they can come in, they can bring a faggot of wood on their shoulder or in the back of their car and heat the place, or just they can phone us up and say, can you turn the fire on? We can turn the fire on, and then they can bring some wood in the back of one of their cars to replace the wood on the wood pile, and there isn't that notion of burning kerosene quite irresponsibly to heat huge volumes of space just to have an hour's meeting, which is what happens at the moment. So we want to address that kind of consciousness about the heating and the energy thing as well through that. You can heat the hall yourself just by taking your secateurs out and cutting a few dead branches and bringing them in. To help with the heating and to help with a lot of my vegetable production, we're going to be putting a lean-to greenhouse here. So we'll be pulling the stone cobbled floor out, and I'll recycle the stone to make the foundation for that, and then I'll be building that with some chestnut trunks and some recycled windows, and then it'll be plastic sheeting on the roof. On this side, that will be a wattle and daub and a post, again round wood post and beam structure to make two dry toilets that are accessible for people in wheelchairs. And then the runoff from these two extensions will go into tanks here, and then it will run here in a swale. Here will be a grey water treatment, which will take the grey water, so we'll be using exactly the same system that we used in the Homemaker, which, if you haven't seen the Homemaker video, the link's there. And then into a pond, and then back into another swale coming back the other way, which will have willow growing on there, principally willow and hazelnut, and the willow for the basket weaving activities that happen here. The rest of the hall will be a multi-function space. There'll be basket weaving equipment on the walls, and it'll all be filled up with the elements of the life that it contains. So it may well be a space for children that don't go to school, parents that have pulled their kids out of national education, that need a space to do workshops with their kids, with animators, etc., and all the stuff that we do already. The rest of the land, this space here, just needs to be a nice garden as an extension of the internal space. Obviously the greenhouse will help heat the hall as well in the winter on the sunny days, and we have to have some big sturdy thick oak doors on that opening here to shut that heat out in the summer so that the hall doesn't become an oven. Here a half moon garden, several raised beds. At the moment that's a mound, because we had the digger in to dig round the barn to drain and to level off some of the land. So the land's quite hurt at the moment. It's had a 5-ton digger on it for 6 days. So here I've got a mound here and the mound here, just turning all that soil back into something productive. I've layered it up with dead brambles and hay and all sorts of other biomass, and that will just rot down, and that will finish up by making me these raised beds in a half moon. And that's to be the backdrop If we've got any music bands or any street theatre groups, we quite often have street theatre troupes come in and do their show, or any kind of workshop or show going on or demonstration, that can happen here. We can put up a little stage, and this lawn here has been calculated to be able to fit the marquee. There's all of the local villages are grouped together by groups of 5, 6 or up to 9. And our local group of villages has got a lot of equipment in common, and some of it is lent out to associations or hired out for people when they get married: chairs, tables, cooking gear and marquees. So we've gone and measured the marquee that we can have, and this lawn space has been designed into the design to be able to fit that in, no problem. The rest of it divided up into little fields. My agricultural project, as I go out into the microfarm on the land the other side, will be called Art des Champs, which is complementary to Champs des Arts, and that means art of the fields, which is pretty much essentially what I'll be trying to communicate is how to create the art of using fields correctly to produce food and in a regenerative manner. So I have a very, very small version of it here, which was the design that I did before we knew that the rest was for sale. So a pond up here, and this pond is on a contour. It's on a swale. Actually, it's ended up here. I did originally design it here. It's ended up here, and it's at the same height as the guttering here. So I'll be building up 2 breeze block walls, reinforced breeze block walls here, and I'll be putting 2 tanks, 2 1-ton water tanks up here, as high as I can get them, and then the overflow from that will go down into a vertical PVC pipe, which will then go into an underground water pipe up to the pond, and that means that as water fills into the tanks, flows out of the tanks, it will fill that tube, and it will just keep pushing the water uphill. So I'll be able to catch all of that runoff from the barn roof and get it up into this pond and then out into the swale. And the idea of that is to get as much of this water up above the well, which is there, as possible, so that I can keep that water table filled up, because I'm completely dependent on that well in the summer. When we get 10 weeks without any rain, I'm pulling out 2 cubic meters a day of water from there, and as our animal needs go up, that's just going to go up even more. Okay, then it's just a sequence of little fields. This one's going to be the parking area for people that come, and then this is my duck and chicken area. So if you've seen what I'm planning to do with the chicken caterpillar, the chicken caterpillar will be trimming out these perimeters, and then I'll be fencing ducks in there in these 4 parks, and here, and occasionally here if there's no events on. How that fits in with the bigger design, quite simply, we come here. We can see the lines of all the fields. That line here, which separated the bits of land legally, that will disappear, and I'll push out at an angle right up to the next pond, and then that will give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paddocks for the ducks with a pond in the middle. And I'll do exactly the same format as I've done for the chickens in the homemaker, where there'll be a central run for the ducks with their house, with their pond, and then there'll be one of these parks open at any given time. And those 2 areas, the chicken paradise and the duck paradise, will be reproduction areas. That's where I want the chickens to lay their eggs, and I'll have I've got lighter birds in the homemaker that are more prone to going broody, and then I'll have heavier birds in this area because I'll be producing some meat, and I'll take the eggs from the heavier birds and go and put them underneath my lighter broody birds to produce chicks without incubators, and then bring the chicks back out into the chicken caterpillars to fatten them up. And that is essentially it, everybody. Next time I'll be doing a video will be in the springtime when the garden's looking nice and presentable. I'll see you soon.